Hi everybody, welcome to Friday Night Live. And today's question is, somebody wrote in wanting to know what to do about the anxious feelings that they're having. And being somebody that was diagnosed with anxiety years ago, I know what that's like. So many of us really struggle with that. It's very lonely and it's a very scary place. What I come to realize is that I didn't have anxiety. I just had anxious thinking. I had future thinking. I had the what ifs. One point, Rudi had to go off somewhere, and he was in a hurry. We had a time limit, and my anxious thinking was, he's going to get into an accident and he's not going to come back. What am I going to do? And I actually had this scenario in my mind all created of him being in the hospital or even worse, and who I was going to contact and what I was going to do. But really, when I just realized, I'm doing it again, I was creating a scenario in my mind that I didn't have all the pieces to. I had no idea what was going to happen. It's something that Rudi refers to as an incomplete equation. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I got the word incomplete equation by Dr. Keith Blevins of Alderman, who are good friends of ours. And what that really refers to is when we think about the future, we think about it as if we know what's going to happen. And as you know from the other Friday Night Lives, whatever we think feels and appears real,
right,
even though it's a construction of our minds.
Our supplemental video.
Yeah. So when we think of the future, the misunderstanding is we think we know what's going to happen, and then we terrorize ourselves with our own innocent thinking because it looks and feels real. But actually, we don't really know what's going to happen. And even if it does or did happen, we still don't know how it will be if it did happen.
Right.
I don't know if anyone watching, you worried about something and something happened, but then you showed up very differently in that moment. I know a friend of mine was terrified that their dad was going to pass away, and then he actually got a heart attack. And when we were driving, he was actually feeling really peaceful and calm, and he thought whatever happens, he'll be fine. Like, he would have thought he would feel that when that happened. So one, we don't know if what's going to happen is going to happen. Two, we don't know how we're going to be if it does happen. So there's all these incomplete equations when we think about the future. But when we think about the future, we think we kind of have got a complete equation and we know what's going to happen, but we just don't. And so I think knowing the future event, circumstance, situation may or may not happen, but now, this moment right here, all it is and can ever be and will always be is a thought. It's a thought creating a feeling in our bodies, creating emotions that we're seeing as true. I think even Mark Twain said, I've had many troubles in my life, yet a few of them happened.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you guys, you could probably think of this now as you're watching. How many worries did you have in your life of something happening and it never did? And even if it did, you find A, you showed up very differently. B, actually, that was kind of good it did happen because it put you on a completely different trajectory in life. Or C, you learnt so much from it. And so with worry is fundamentally future thinking. Well, that's not because you can't think in the future. Worry is fundamentally thinking about the future as if it's true. For instance, I know that my mum, when she was here, I went off backpacking by myself, went all over the world with a backpack. I was away for 6 months, went to all these dodgy backstreet places, was in the slums in India, up in the Himalayas. My mum was thinking he could fall off, he could get blown off the Himalayas, he could get mugged in the slums. And when I got back, she said to me, "Are you okay, honey? Did anything happen to you?" I said, no, a most amazing experience. People around the world are just beautiful people. I just met such incredibly beautiful people. And she was almost disappointed because she spent 6 months worrying about me and all these possible things never happened. But she was in fear every day for 6 months. Bless her. I say bless her not in a derogatory sense, but we do that too. We worry about things as if they're true when they're not.
Right. We think about any given possibility, but we think about that now.
Yeah.
And we feel it now. And it's very, very real.
Yeah. That's so important, that point, honey, because now, this moment is the only time we get to experience anything, whether we're thinking past, whether we're thinking future. Now, in this moment, is we're feeling what we're thinking now about the future, about the past. This is the only place to be. It's the only time we have. Do we want to innocently terrorize ourselves with our own thinking, our own perception, our own internal construction of there and there?
Right.
When there may have happened and there may happen, but now is where we get to live. It's a bit like in the future we could tread on a nail. So what happens now? We stick a nail in our shoe now and we keep walking on it. It's not logical. One of the things my students have said who are parents who's been on our trainings is that they love their kids, but they don't worry about them anywhere near as much as they did. Business people who come on the course say they're juggling money around and employees, but they're not worried about it. They just productively shuffle things around. They drop the worry.
Yeah. We had one individual that was diagnosed with anxiety, PTSD, and she was did not leave her home in 22 years. And when that clicked for her, when she understood that it was just her thinking anxious thoughts, and she was living within that feeling, the very next day she went out for a bike ride. And we can't stop her now.
She went up and saw her daughter
Her daughter graduated.
Yeah.
Her daughter graduated college, and she was there. It was just the most beautiful thing to watch, just how that unfolded. And it's when we have these anxious thoughts, we're so up in our mind and our brain and believing these thoughts and creating all these scenarios and feeling all these feelings. And there's so many chemical reactions that are happening within our body. But when we realize that it is an incomplete equation, and we're doing it again, we fall back in to our heart space, and those thoughts just float on by. And when we stop judging ourselves, there's less of an attachment to that thinking. And again, we fall back into our heart space. There's an alignment. There's a clarity. There's a empowerment. And it's a really beautiful place to live. In the now, we're more present.
And I love what you said right at the start. Like Jules said, she wasn't anxious. She had anxious thinking. And I think when you separate yourself as a entity from your thoughts, you're liberated, because you aren't what you think. Your consciousness was thoughts passing through and seeing it as thought. For example, there's a logic to this, and if a future event is looming, it could be the loss of a job, it could be a big move, a baby coming in, whatever that possible event is that looks very likely it's going to happen. The way for you to navigate it, if it did happen, is with a clear mind. Are you more productive when you're creative, when you have freedom of thinking? Are you more productive when you feel freer and insightful, or are you more productive when you're overwhelmed, stressed, anxious? Well, it's kind of obvious. When you're more creative, you have more creative power to do things.
You're connected to your wisdom.
If you are innocently terrorizing yourself with the what ifs, when you get into that possible future, you're not going to have the mental real estate to deal with it very effectively. It doesn't make sense to worry. Worry doesn't equal love.
Right.
Worry is you having worried thoughts. So moving forward into this possible future, do you want to have a distracted mind? Do you want to have a clear mind? Because there's now, there's now, there's now, there's now, there's now. In the absence of terrorizing ourselves around thought now, that now goes into the future now.
Mm-hmm.
And then in that future now, if something does happen, you've got a lot more creative capacity and resilience to deal with it if it did happen. So in a sense, there's nothing, there are things to worry about, but we don't have to worry about them.
That's beautiful, yeah.
Mm.
I love that. I hope this helps.
Yeah, I hope it helps.
Right. And we notice, well, I noticed that when I had those moments of, I'm doing it again.
Yeah.
The anxious thinking, the worried thoughts just happen less and less. And when it did happen, I knew not to pay attention to it. I knew not to buy into it or hop on that crazy train that it seems to arrive on. And I just felt better. I saw things clearer. I see things clearer. My relationship is better.
Mm.
And things, I just live life with more ease.
And even if you do worry about something, you know you shouldn't, but you can't help it, and you still worry.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry that you're worried.
That's right.
Just be worried, be human.
Right. Go, I'm worrying again.
Give yourself 100% permission to be human, just as you are. Whatever feeling state you're in, you're just humaning. Embrace that humanness and just be as you are without judgment. And then you have freedom. Freedom isn't a state of mind. It's just experiencing all states of mind with freedom.
Mm.
So, yeah, lots of love to you.
Thank you. We love you.
We love you. Bye for now.
Bye.